Hi, and welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating podcast. My name is Kristen Jones, and thank you so much for joining me this week. Well, this week has been like this month. I have not been live on a podcast for a hot minute. It's been a while. Have had a lot of stuff going on, but am really happy to be back and recording a podcast. Have a little bit of a new digs going on here, a little new background. So many people have asked me if I'm in an alternative location. If you're just listening to this on the podcast, the video recording is the video recording can be found on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Kristen Jones Coaching. And so the background is very different. And I just flipped my desk around. So in reality, I'm in the same room as I always am, but just kind of flipped things around. And I've always had these things on the wall. Plant is new. I'll have a couple other things that'll show up as well, but just trying something a little bit different. And so happy to be back with you all. So today we are going to talk about goal acquisition. So acquiring and reaching a goal, which I think, it's January and we all are having, I don't ever call them resolutions. I would call them, intentions. We set intentions for what we want to have in our lives and what we want to create. And those intentions, I think they're always well-meaning, and they're always things that we want to have, and we want to have them in a positive way. We want that experience to be positive. But what can so oftentimes happen is there is such a fine line between what makes up being consistent and when consistency morphs into perfectionism. And perfectionism is where we then start to completely beat ourselves up and break ourselves down when we are not doing things in the exact way that we think. And then this goal that we were reaching and this goal that we were working towards suddenly becomes very self-destructive. And that's not what anybody wants. We don't want a goal acquisition to become this thing that becomes a monkey on our back and then creates so much negativity in our lives that one, we give up on the goal, but then we feel so badly about ourselves and we beat ourselves up, and there becomes a lot of shame and disappointment and disgust. And that is so not healthy because, and again, when we're talking about, if we're talking about it in the world of an emotional eater, that is the perfect storm that is going to send you right to whatever your vice is, whatever your food is that you turn to for comfort. When you feel that you've disappointed yourself and you've let yourself down, that just opens the door for all of those emotions, and those emotions that we don't necessarily know how to handle, those emotions just streaming in and really creating a lot of negativity. And so that becomes really self-destructive. So we really want to try and avoid that. But there's never anything wrong with achieving those goals and reaching goals. I think reaching goals is so important, but we need to do it in a way that is healthy and that is still enjoyable and doesn't lead us down that path of perfectionism. And because that can be, again, that can just be so, it creates such a feeling of negativity within us that we don't want to have, and we don't want to create, because the repercussions of that can really put us in a bad place. So I think it's really important to start off in defining what is the difference between consistency and perfectionism. And you will notice, one of the things that I noticed immediately was that consistency and perfectionism both have a lot of the same elements. Where the line is drawn in the sand is the mindset that a person takes when they are working towards achieving something. And whatever that mindset is, that clearly determines and is really impactful when it comes to what the difference between consistency and perfectionism. So I'm going to kind of go through and just talk a little bit about the definitions of both words, and then kind of what the focus is, what the mindset piece is for both of those aspirations, I would say. And then we're also going to talk about some things that you can do if you start to notice that I'll talk about what the signs are when you've kind of crossed the line from consistency to perfectionism, and then what you can do to kind of rein yourself back in. So starting off, consistency refers to the the quality of trying to achieve or do something, being very reliable, being steady, unwavering in your behaviors, your actions, and your attitudes, and doing it on a regular basis. Regular, I think, is the key word there. It's not every day. It's not without fail. It's just with regularity, and it's reliable, steady. That doesn't mean you're perfect. That doesn't mean that perfection word comes in. When we look at perfectionism, it is again, it's a tendency to set a very high expectation for oneself. A lot of time, almost always, it's not that expectation is not created by anybody else. It's created by us individually. And it is accompanied by a strong desire to achieve flawless behavior and flawless actions. Now, there's a huge difference between saying you're doing something with being reliable, unwavering, steady, in your behaviors, and being flawless and setting high expectations. There's just even a difference of anxiety that's created between those two things, between the definitions of those two words. And so how do we make sure that we're not moving? How does consistency stay consistent? Well, it all gets down to, what are our thoughts about our, and I think everything is always going to come back to, what are your thoughts about yourself? What are your thoughts about you? When you feel good about you as a person, just me sitting here at my desk, however I feel about myself inside at my core, that's going to permeate, and that is going to impact whatever kind of performance I have. So think about for yourself, think about when you're feeling good and you're feeling confident and you feel like what I'm doing, I feel pretty good about myself. I wake up and I feel good. Things can go completely sideways in your life, and you at least have, you feel like, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can kind of keep myself, in and between the guardrails. When you go into something not feeling that way, any little thing that happens completely throws you off. And so perfectionism creeps in when we're not feeling good about ourselves, but we feel like we should. And and I'm going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with setting standards for yourself. There's nothing wrong with saying, I really want to be there for people, or I want to show up, and I want to be the best person I can be. There is nothing wrong with that. But where the problem lies is when we don't take into consideration the human condition and the fact that we are not going to wake up every day feeling amazing, feeling 100%. We're going to have a whole lot of horrible things happen in our lives that, if we don't give ourselves a break and recognize, oh, you know what? Yeah. Ooh, gosh, just got a flat tire. Ooh, just got in an argument with my partner. Ooh, my boss just yelled at me. If we don't take those things into consideration and give ourselves a break and give ourselves that little bit of leeway, we're going to find ourselves completely falling apart in those situations. And so it's really important to not only recognize, okay, how am I feeling about myself? But when I'm not feeling good about myself, how about I don't pile on? How about I give myself a break? How about I allow myself a little bit of a cushion to be able to recognize, you know what? Maybe today isn't the day that I can do everything that I thought I was going to be able to do. So that's the first thing, is recognizing, how am I feeling about myself? And do I need to pull back on those expectations? Because there's nothing wrong with setting expectations, but as that definition said, setting excessively high standards for yourself, nobody needs that all the time. We can do that if we have an expectation that we want to show up. If I am going to do a presentation, or I'm going to do a podcast, I want to show up in the best possible way that I can. I'm not going to come in and be like, oh, let me just walk through this one. Let me see what I can do. Let me see the least amount of effort that I can put in. No. But if things don't go the way I want, that's up to me then to decide, you know what? I'm not gonna just pile on myself. I'm gonna realize, you know what, I got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. And I got to give myself a break if things don't go in the exact same way that I wanted them to go. And so it's our responsibility as individuals to rein ourselves in. And the bottom line is a lot of times the perfectionism comes in because we're afraid of what other people are going to think. And I'm going to tell y'all, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you're doing. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but everybody cares about themselves. Nobody's really watching what anybody else is doing. So realize that and just be like, you know what? I do the best I can for me. And if that's not good enough, it's okay. If no one's gonna fall apart if that happens. So the next thing we want to look at is what's the mindset of of someone who is working at the level of consistency. So the level of consistency is a person who wants to be consistent, oftentimes has a positive and a realistic mindset about what it is that they're trying to achieve. And they are really focusing on their progress and not on the end result. They're focusing on their progress and they know their progress is going to be gradual and it's going to take time and it's going to take patience. That is the mark of consistency, knowing that it's not going to happen automatically and that it's going to be gradual. And I will tell you, that is where I find the most that most people who are trying to either, change a habit, in most cases it's lose weight. I've been doing this a long time, helping people lose weight. And probably the thing that holds people up and holds people back is the expectation that something is going to change right away. And I better see changes and they better happen right now. And I better get out of this uncomfortable situation immediately. And if I'm doing something, I better see a result. And I better see a result right away. And that is just not the way change happens. Change oftentimes does not happen right away. And it doesn't oftentimes happen in ways that we can recognize it. A lot of times changes are so small and so nuanced that it takes time and it takes effort and it takes effort over time in order to see these things. So a person who's being consistent understands that and knows that it's going to be gradual and that it's that if in general over time there's persistent effort, they're going to get the result that they want. But it's going to be regular effort and it's irregular, not perfect, but regular effort. And so that's where that consistency piece comes in. That's where someone who's consistent, they have a little bit more, it's not super laid back, but it's a realistic mindset of this is going to take time. Progress is going to be measured. I'm going to see progress, but it might take a little bit longer and I'm not going to get my panties in a wad about it. Now, the perfectionist, that's a whole nother story. A perfectionist, their mindset is very, very fearful. Their mindset is, if I don't get this right, this has something to do with me as a person. Then I am not a good person. If I don't get whatever this thing is that I'm doing, if I don't get it right, then there's something wrong with me at my core. And that is no way for anybody to walk around and be feeling. And so we have to, when we start to, and I think the way that I can describe it is when you feel yourself, the term I love is getting nutted up. When you can feel yourself getting nutted up about really insignificant small things, you know that and you get so bent out of shape, you know you are moving into that perfectionist, oh my gosh, I have to get this, because you start to associate your good as a person relating to your behaviors and your actions that you're taking. And I'm going to tell you that who we are as people is not our behavior. Our behavior is one thing, but who we are at our core is totally different. And everyone is deserving, everyone is valuable, everyone is worthy at their core. Do our behaviors always reflect that? No. But that doesn't mean that because our behaviors maybe in a moment aren't the behaviors we want, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us at our core. But a perfectionist, their self-worth and their self-value is intrinsically linked to their performance. And no one can measure up to that. No one can keep that ball in the air. And so that's where that perfectionist gets into so much trouble, because when they don't achieve what they think they're supposed to achieve, it's not just not doing that thing, it's destroying them from the inside. It's destroying them as a person. And that is never something that we want to do. Your who you are at your core is not who you are from a behavior standpoint. It's just not. We should not ever label ourselves. And we individuals have to be responsible for recognizing that and going, oh no, I'm not doing that. We can't look to other people to tell us to calm us down and to talk us off that ledge. We have to do that ourselves. We have to recognize, like, I can't do this because this is not making me happy and it's not where I want to be. So for a person who is consistent, the outcome of what they're trying to achieve, generally, they are able to sustain for a longer period of time, moving towards that goal. And there's gradual improvements and there is an accomplishment of a goal. And they see that, and it really allows them to feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of fulfillment when they reach that goal. And it might look a little, the goal end result might look a little different than what they thought of in the beginning, but they've been able to be relaxed about it. They've been open-minded. Maybe the goal has changed everything. They've been able to just flow with that goal. Now, for a perfectionist, and I'm sure many of you have been there, or you know somebody who's like this, it doesn't matter if they reach their goal or not. And they could reach their goal, it's still never going to be enough. They're still going to be critical. They're still going to come away. They may have a moment of exhilaration of reaching that goal, and then they're going to find something that what didn't go smoothly. They're going to find something that was wrong with it. And it's going to create so much anxiety that then we'll have to do another goal. We'll have to reach for something else. We'll have to do something else. And they never, ever are going to feel truly accomplished and truly happy with what they achieve, because there's always something else that they could have done better. And y'all, that's no way to live. It is no way to live. And what the way it relates to an emotional eater is, if you are on that perfectionist train, any deviation from the way you think things are supposed to go, that is just an open door to a binge. It's an open door to an overeat. It's an open door to completely giving in to whatever the food is that comforts you, because you feel bad. And again, that's not how anybody wants to feel. And all of us would never want someone we love to feel that way. Why would we want ourselves to feel that way? We've got to start reining ourselves in and going, no, this isn't worth it. It's not, nobody cares. It's not worth it. I'm not doing it anymore. So how do we move away from that? How do we start to pull ourselves away and start to adopt a healthier mindset of consistency over perfectionism? So the first one is, you've got to set realistic goals. The goals have got to be something that is achievable and that is something that you can actually, like, in realistic terms, something you can achieve, and breaking those goals into much smaller segments, smaller mini goals, mini, areas that you can achieve things in, instead of trying to do this one big thing, which then, if you don't achieve it, you're a failure, and then that spirals down. So the first thing is set realistic goals and break them into smaller mini goals to make them more manageable. The next one, and this is true with everything, and I especially will say this in regards to weight loss and managing emotional eating, it's focus on progress. Focus on little wins, little victories, small scale things, little changes and behaviors. That's what we need to focus on. The end goal, it'll be there, but we need to start focusing on the smaller little incremental things. Oh, I didn't react that time. Oh, I didn't lose my mind when something happened. Oh, I handled myself much better. All of those things, we have to start recognizing that. We have to start recognizing when we do those things. Next one, learn from those things that didn't go as well as you wanted them to. Learn from those things. Instead of just being upset, and just beating yourself up. How about, we take a look and we learn nothing is a failure. Failures are always first attempts in learning, and we try to learn from those things. And honestly, failures, you want to have failures. Failures means you're trying, you're in the game, you're still working at something, and then you can make an adjustment and then you try again. We don't quit. We keep working and we keep pushing forward. Um, the next one is whenever you're working towards a goal and you're ever doing something, you've got to focus on being compassionate with yourself. And if you don't do something right, there are so many other people around you who are gonna who will either say or do or make you feel bad about things. You don't need to pile on and be that next person that does that to you. You've got to have your own back. You've got to be compassionate with yourself. And too many of us are so compassionate with everyone else, and we don't give that compassion to ourselves. And that's another place that we really need to start being more compassionate with ourselves. We need to also manage our expectations of how quickly we are going to get to whatever this thing is that we're working towards. We've got to start managing our expectations. And when we start to feel that anxiety creep in regards to what we think we should be doing, we've got to nip that right away. We've got to get right there and be like, nope, I'm not going to do that. That is not going to happen anymore. Not going to do it. We've got to start reining that stuff in. That's really got to happen. Because again, if we don't stop ourselves from doing that, no one will. Next thing, all or nothing thinking, it is old news. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to break away from that and avoid extremes. Always, never. I always do this. I never do this. We've got to find that middle ground. And there's nothing wrong with the middle ground. We don't have to be extreme. Sometimes, sometimes people feel like it's their duty to be that loud, that person who's so extreme and so out there. There's nothing wrong with just being right there in the middle. There's nothing wrong with that. When, and again, when you're reaching a goal or when you're striving for a goal, it's really all about the process. It's about the process. It's not about the outcome. It's about the person you become as you are working through getting to that goal. And so focusing on that as opposed to the end result is a great way of taking the pressure off and really just trying to enjoy the process. Because unfortunately, so many people they want to achieve things. They want to do certain things, and then they're just miserable in the process. And that's not that nobody wants to be that. No one wants to feel that way. We don't ever want to have those be and the end result that we get is just the anxiety and the angst that we create by trying to achieve this goal. We need to enjoy the process. Frankly, y'all, we need to lighten up. And that's really what it is. And then lastly, we've got to start controlling our thoughts. And when those perfectionistic thoughts come in, we've got to catch them and be like, nope, I don't think that way anymore because I am not a perfectionist and I do not do those types of things. I don't beat myself up. I don't take things out of myself. It's just not worth it. So in review, we all have a responsibility to ourselves to recognize when we have started to cross over, when we started to cross over into that ugly place where we are pushing too hard. We've got our death grip on whatever the thing is that we're trying to achieve. And we've got to loosen that up. And we've got to remember that if we don't have our backs, no one else will. Ultimately, the only person you're ever going to be left with is yourself. And so you have to be your own best advocate. You have to be the person who reins yourself in. And you have to be the one to say, you know what, that probably wasn't a very good thought. Let's try another thought. Let's try and not go down that route. When we feel it, we know when we feel it. We know when we feel that anxiety. We've got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to pull ourselves back. We've got to remember that a goal is great, but when it puts us at risk of not caring about ourselves, then the goal is not going to be productive and it's not something that we want to work towards. And we may need to reevaluate our desire for that goal. So something to think about, because I know that most emotional eaters have perfectionist tendencies. I know I do. And I have to work on it all the time. I have to rein that in constantly. So it's very, very challenging, but we have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to make sure that we get those things reined in. So Thank you very much for joining me this week. So I have something for you. I have something for my listeners, my followers, anyone who is a person who is looking to move away from diet culture, move away from that obsession with reaching that goal weight. There's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy. I think the way we do it here in America and around the world is not healthy. And I don't think it's productive. And I think it is just an endless cycle. So I am all about not dieting. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not a proponent of diets. I do not think diets work. And so it's just not something I think people can lose weight and get to their goal weight and their ideal weight and do it in a way that allows them to eat what they want. Heck yes. So I have created a 5-step stop dieting 5-step guide, and it will take you through what I consider the 5 areas of your life that you need to examine and look at in order to be able to kind of get yourself to move more towards the thoughts of, I'm not going to diet. I'm just going to make these little changes in my life, these small habits, these small changes, and then be able to start to transform how I feel about myself and how I feel about my body. And then that becomes kind of a gateway into being able to lose weight that you want, lose the weight that you want, but do it in a way that doesn't make you crazy, because that is not worth it. So if you are interested in getting a hold of that 5-step guide, it will be in the show notes here on the podcast, as well as in the Facebook on my personal profile. I will have it listed in the comments from this podcast, as well as it is in my link tree on my Instagram. At Breakthrough Emotional Eating is my handle on Instagram. And I have in my bio, I have a link tree link that you can go to, and the link is right there. You can sign up for it. You will immediately get access to it. And I think that I know that those 5 things that you take a look at will absolutely change how you are able to look at dieting, why you need to move away from dieting. And it's really nice to see that there are a lot of um, people out there that are really leaning more towards this viewpoint of really letting go of dieting and really changing our thoughts and our beliefs and our habits, and having that be the way for people to get to their ideal weight. And no longer is it starving ourselves and punishing ourselves and doing all those things that honestly don't work. So if you're interested in getting your hands on the Stop Dieting 5-Step Guide, please go ahead and go to the show notes and you can access that guide immediately. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next week. And again, be safe, and we'll see you soon. Take care.